They are rank and bitter anger, they are all avoiding life. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and so foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and so foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. Let us build a bridge of music, let us cross it with a song. Let us span another canyon, let us write another bond. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. We will tell them building bridges and be off.
We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Thank you, Bill Staines, for letting us play Bridges song on Bridges Programming. Welcome to Bridges Programming. This is Wednesday World Call-In. We have today, we're in Florida for the first time, a little town called Moorhaven, broadcasting for the first time. We don't have all of our studios set up yet, but you'll be able to look at the background if you're online to see what's going on in the studio. And you know, I'm going to be outside trying to help open up the building with a friend of mine who's helping us. And we have with us today Bonfire and Dennis Carius and Susan Comont.
Yay!
And and she's going to be talking about
honoring veterans.
Honoring veterans, because it's Veterans Week, and we had the Young Marines here yesterday, and then the day before we did a test show with him, which came out better than the actual show, according to the video.
He received the award for community service award for a young Marine who had the most community service hours, and Jaska J. Ely, and we're so proud of him. He's he's only 14 and he's
years
so
old,
well
and he was
spoken.
And we're going to try to find out if there's a young
This was the Colonel Pete Hillgardner Award for community service that he received, and he'd been doing a lot of work with his church and in the food services, food ministry. He would go load the trucks, and ever since he was 6 years old, if you can imagine it.
So and he became a young Marine,
and he distribute the food.
And he felt that he gets a huge satisfaction out of helping people, and that's the key for the human renewable energy measure. What you get paid when you do something is not money; is a self-satisfaction, and you get the people
and seeing how happy people are and interact.
You get satisfaction out of trying to get information out. Well, anyway, it's all the same. Okay, so without any further ado, Bonfire is going to be talking, and Dennis and Susan are going to be here, and I have to go outside and work. And Dennis, if you go online, let us know if you could see what's going on in the background, because we have the camera facing out to the courtyard. You're
going to have to do your 2 hours of HREM work, Jeff.
I'm going to be back here. I got to do my hours of HREM.
Right.
Go ahead, Bonfire, you're on.
Hi. So welcome to Landslide. I don't know what program number this is anymore, but we continue to tumble through time and space. I thank Susan Comont and Jeff Beller, for my dear friends, for making this possible. I hope that my voice is audible.
You are audible.
But I hope I will be audible when I am heard in the future. Yeah.
You're audible. You are doing great. Oh.
Well, thank you very much, Susan Comont.
I'm trying to get the light.
Welcome to Florida, and also Dennis, welcome. Thank you for being here as well.
Oh, here we go.
Bonnie, thank you for being with us, and you're very audible right now.
Yes, I just hope I will be audible in perpetuity.
Well, you're going to be
So
audible.
I would celebrate Veterans Day. When did it become Veterans Week, by the way? Veterans Day. Okay, it's Veterans Year, as far as I can tell. Every other holiday we have is to celebrate war or devastated people who have chosen to participate in war, and I'm here to say, stop it. Just stop it. I got a letter from the Disabled American Veterans, and they were asking me for my 2 cents worth. It said putting my name straight into the letter that I received, which is always a little creepy to me to see my actual name, because leave me alone, you people. Anyway, it said it's let's see, are the sacrifices our disabled veterans made worth 2 pennies a day to you? That's all I'm asking you to do, says Moses McIntosh, who is the commander in charge of this fundraising letter, at least. That's all I'm asking you to do. Set aside 2 cents a day for a year. It adds up to $7.30. And I'm thinking I will put in my 2 cents worth, but in a very different format. Here I am putting in my, well, it's not even 2 cents worth anymore, Moses McIntosh. It is owing to inflation, maybe 25 cents worth. It could even be up to $1 for all I know. I'm going to wander around through all kinds of ideas that have occurred to me since I last had the great good fortune to have my voice transmitted out over the air, for which I am grateful, by the way. Did I say that? Great good fortune. Great good fortune.
Yep.
I am actually not in Florida with some of the other folks, nor is Dennis. We are in the northeast part of the United States of America, home of the deluded and spent. And I am right up against the Vermont border. Can't see it today. The clouds are hanging very low. We're never sure if the clouds anymore are a phenomenon of nature and weather as it once was able to muster itself, or the mustering of a martial mentality with solar radiation management and other ways that our atmosphere is being commandeered. But it's overcast today, and kind of even the traditional November day, as I remember Novembers of my youth, which have a kind of gloomy sweetness to them right around Halloween, as we still are a little bit inside that envelope of Halloween, the time of the veil, as they say, between the living and the dead, or the spirit world, the spirit realm, and the living, if that's what we are. Some of us more than others, maybe. But that veil is thinner, and wonderfully magical things can happen. I think I've had quite a few sightings of spirits. Really felt like ghosts of humans. Sometimes the spirits are nature spirits, or fairy beings, some of the more famous or infamous folklore, folk tale beings. But this is the time of year when the vapor has opened up a little bit to show us what's across the veil. And I think across the veil, and also not only the veil, the VEIL, which is what I meant, but I guess across the veil as in the valley, too, on the other side.
That's a nice thought.
Yes, thank you. So, I was going to, and still will, as part of my celebration of our inability to let go of our martial response, read the litany I have, the history of experiments on human beings, human experimentation, which of course is, I would have to say, always related to a martial mentality. The earliest one I have on the list is 1931, but I also have with me an amazing book, which I would recommend other people try to get a hold of. It's Tomorrow's Weapons, and I have referred to it in the past on other programs. It's written by Brigadier General, retired, that is, Brigadier General J.H. Rothschild, USA. Curious to have that name Rothschild turn up in the name of the author of this book, Tomorrow's Weapons. I found my way to this book. Someone very generously told me about it, and then I bought it through one of our local bookstores, who was able to get a copy of it. This one came from the library of the U.S. Naval Hospital in Long Beach, California. So what, did they have this available for people who were convalescing after having suffered from war, having suffered from the various chemical and biological warfare components? I don't know. But that's the book. It was published in 1964, and I am going to refer to it a little bit during my time with you today on Landslide. I also am thinking, let's do a conscious breathing exercise.
Oh boy.
My gosh.
I could get behind.
To all of those who are in post-traumatic stress, and you don't have to go to Iraq or Vietnam or Korea or any of the various places where our soldiers have gone to suffer from post-traumatic stress.
I agree.
I think any of us who are are nailed to the cross of war, one way or another, by proxy or by choosing, if you can even call that an actual choice, being fooled into participating, maybe the way it seems to me, especially our young people, this is to celebrate all of us who are veterans of war. And I am going back even to when JFK was president, long ago and far away, and the Cuban Missile Crisis was one of the first things.
I remember that.
Yeah.
People were digging bomb shelters.
Yes, that coming out of in the 50s, I think, right? 1950s?
That was actually, I think I was about 5 years old, so it could have been the early 60s, but it was close, yeah. And I remember neighbors talking about building, digging out a bomb shelter and stuff like that.
Yeah, or using your cellar, which my mom did, to try to, store some food and so on.
Right.
Of course, it's ludicrous, really, unless one thinks that coming out of a bomb shelter to a devastated planet would be a cheery,
a possibility at all, right? Or a possibility, because you could remain in that shelter, 50 to 100 years. There would be an underground population.
As a skeleton at some point, I dare say.
Yes.
It's why is that a life? No, not quite what I was dreaming of. Because it's such a beautiful planet, you people. Stop it! So that's my general feeling about celebrating all the veterans of war. Let's not call it a celebration so much as celebrating a potential shift in our thinking from solving everything with weaponry, or just violence of words, for that matter, violence of thought. And maybe we could mature spiritually and move beyond this. I don't know. It does seem to be a planet that is condemned to kind of caught under the spell of Mars, as it were, the planet of war, or so they say. But whatever the cosmic influences are that lead us to be so stupid, endlessly stupid in our choices, I hope that fog, that toxic fog, can lift and bring us to another way of being on this really, really beautiful planet. With that said, it might be a sweet little shift to tell about an experience I had yesterday here on the sanctuary I do live on a wildlife sanctuary, and we have a couple of feral cats who have been trapped, neutered, and released, who come in every day for food, morning and evening. And yesterday morning, I went out to take a bowl of food to this big hunk of a black and white cat, whom we call Shakina, for reasons which could be explained another time. And in Shakina's water bowl was a round dragonfly. Not a dragonfly precisely, one of the smaller, the damselflies, I think they're called. And I thought, oh, that is so sad. I am stricken by those kinds of things, as many of you listening might well be. And yet I know I can't remedy everything. I can't make everything right. It turns out I probably can't really make anything right, except in a moment-to-moment basis, maybe. So I thought, well, even though its tail is curled under and its legs are kind of crinkly looking, I'm going to just slide my finger under this little being and see if I see that there's any life left in it. And as you probably are thinking, yes, she did see a little life. Yes, a little moving, slight moving of its legs. And I thought, well, okay, I think I will bring this little being into the house, put it on a dry cloth so that maybe the water will be absorbed off of its body, off of its wings, because it's kind of dripping at that point. I'll put a glass over it so if it does revive, it won't be lost in my house, and we'll just see if it will recuperate. This is an experiment, but it has potential for enormous happiness for me, and, maybe bringing something to, unless it was a suicide mission, I don't know, but, I'm interfering. If it was, I'm going to try to revive it, bring it back to the world, even though it's time of year when dragonflies they're going under anyway, and maybe that's what happens. Or maybe it thought it was landing on a little water body that it couldn't lift its wings out of because of the size of the walls of the bowl. In any case, 20 minutes later, I went and looked, and, there was a little more vitality, just a little more. Its tail had uncurled, and it was looking a little more vibrant. I was feeling really, really hopeful that I was going to be able to revive, and for some reason, even though it's a crazy planet, I still think it's a wonderful place to be. So I took it outside, and it was sitting still. I've had it in the sunshine. It was sunshine yesterday morning, so I had it on the cloth in the sunshine on my hand, and it didn't do anything. But it was looking more perky, and then I noticed that the two left wings, they have four wings, the two left wings were still stuck together. So I brought it back in the house thinking, well, maybe a little more time on the towel, those two wings will be able to separate, and then it could fly maybe. So I brought it back in the house, covered it with glass again, and checked again in 20 minutes, and its two stuck together wings were separated. I thought, this is wonderful. So I brought it outside again, and this time I was looking at it. We were having very close eye contact, which generally speaking with insects is a little creepy to me, especially spider-type beings. They are a little creepy with their many-faceted eyes, or whatever their eye structure is. It is complex, and however they see me, I see them as a little spooky. Not so true with...
Well, they see you the same way.
Yeah, very big.
And spooky.
And spooky. And so there I was. We were having eye contact. It was quite intimate, and really we were having a conversation of some sort, no words. And I set it then down on the cloth in the sunlight on a rock, and I went about my business with a couple of chores, came back, and it was still there. And I walked over to it and looked down at it, and I said, "Can you fly?" of that. To me, if there is a God, that to me is my experience of God. That communication which is nonverbal between me or among, actually more to the point, myself and everything that surrounds me. I used to call it God. I say God is the glue of the universe. Now I'm thinking that it's maybe not so much a glue. I don't know, glue has kind of gone down in my sense of handsome things in the world, I guess. But it was that which is holding, that force which holds the universe together. So now I'm thinking it's also those moments of intimacy with other beings or inanimate objects, for heaven's sakes. So for me, that is a spiritual experience beyond, not beyond compare, but right up there with all the other magical moments I have here on the sanctuary. In pausing after having told this story, Susan or Dennis, do you have stories of a similar sort?
I bet Dennis has a cat story.
Well, my cat story is just living right here with me. And I do agree with Bonnie, too, that sometimes they don't even have to speak to you. You're face to face. It's almost like when you're thinking about something, they respond. It's almost like they can read your mind. Believe me, there are times when that happens, too.
Yes. Also, I think there's something, an energy interplay that we can do with humans as well, and sometimes we do, but it's more off-putting, or it feels more dangerous for me with humans to have that kind of energy intimacy. I fear the outcome, whereas with what we call the natural beings, some of the unnatural beings who hang out where I live, it feels as though it's a much safer experiment in communication. With humans, I'm never quite sure how it's going to end up. But with nature, even if my interpretation or the significance, let me say, is much more easily experienced with wild beings or my own cat as well, there seems to be a depth of experience which I know we can have with humans, but we're disinclined to in general. And I think for me it indicates because we do feel a little bit threatened or greatly threatened by what it means to be intimate with humans. Can be a little dangerous. But that's my very happy story about the baby. That's like to give a gift of that sort to our soldiers, to people who are crazily falling for the idea that war solves anything, that violence really does anything other than allow the next act of violence to be born and to prosper. I really wish that with young people especially, we could alter that way of thinking, because the education toward that way of thinking, that you must participate, is so powerful and so ubiquitous. There's really not much of a voice for anything, any other way of experiencing reality. And it does trouble me, Susan, that this young man was actually a young Marine. I know that Jeff said that the whole trajectory of this organization has shifted toward being helpful to fellow humans, but I would rather not. I would rather our young humans could do that without having to have a martial term for who they are. Also, the whole religious aspect of it; those are troubling too.
Well, I don't think the religious aspect, that was more an individual aspect to it, because his father, I think, I'm not sure of this, but I think he might be a pastor. So that's why he started out with his community work within his father's, church environment. But it does not, what it's doing, it's similar to the way that scouting is, It doesn't have a martial aspect to it. It has an aspect of, starting projects and learning how to be disciplined enough to finish them. Their main thing that they want to do is educate within their communities, or one of the main things, about not getting involved with drugs. And a lot of the communities where the young Marines begin are, low-income communities where this is a real possibility, because economics has forced it upon the people in that area. So it's just, you have to look at the economics of the situation. People will do what they have to do to survive. And when you have youngsters in a community where one of the main ways to make a living is to, sell drugs to young people and get them addicted very, very young. When you have a group of youngsters going around and saying, look, there are other options, and we're forming a community that helps the community. And he was, as I said, since he was 6 years old, helping in the food ministries, taking, loading the trucks and driving with the drivers to distribute food to people who needed it, people who were homebound, people who couldn't shop for themselves, for whatever reason. And he's become bound in a way with sympathy for other people and how they live. And you can see how this has matured him wonderfully. His name is Jaska Ely, and he's lives in Arizona. There are, young Marine groups all over the country, but their focus is not to try to create a soldier. Well, their focus is to help their local communities. And if you go onto their website, you can see, youngmarines.com. But anyway, and I think that as with Ely, he took what the stabilizing aspects of being a part of this group, and he took that and made his own individual choices, because he had that support. He had parental support too. His mother, very strong mother, who taught him, homeschooled him. And he said she was really strict, and she made sure he could read even before, you would normally enter school. And she was, very firm about that. He continues to be homeschooled in his area. So, that was a parental choice. But I'm not saying that that's the best way to do schooling, but oftentimes in an area where, you're economically depressed area, the schooling is compromised because there's not a good tax base to support the school and what it needs. It can be very much a disadvantage, and is a disadvantage for youngsters growing up in those communities. And people don't understand what a huge disadvantage, not being having access to good basic education, and how that handicaps you for a long time throughout your life. So, and the choices then, the pressure, the propaganda to go into a military career of the kind that Bonnie, you are, saying, you wish that this could, and I agree, the time for war has long been an old practice that needs to disappear, and a practice that is only right now, I think, fostered because of the way we do our economics. We need wars in order to force our economics forward all around the world. And if you see it from that angle, but if these youngsters, they're being schooled not in military skills, they're being schooled in how to communicate with their communities first, just beyond their families, to communicate with and do good works for their communities, be socially conscious. They're counseling about drugs and other youngsters their age and younger. This is for, you can join this Young Marines at the age of 8, and 8 to 18 is the the range. And Ely was saying he's seen youngsters come in just like himself. He could hardly express himself when he first started, and he was, stuttering, and he gained confidence and now he expresses himself beautifully. It's just amazing. He's only 14, and this is a huge thing if you can communicate. And he's communicating things that have to do, meaningful things that are meaningful to him. He wants to expand his abilities from community service to being better at counseling youngsters about staying away from drugs. I mean, this is a young man, if he keeps on this trajectory, he's going to see, a very full life, and it can go to develop into something very creative. He said he was about to kind of give up because nobody was, he'd been doing all this community service and he hadn't been recognized for it. And then suddenly he gets this award and he says, wow, this is going to keep me going. I'm going to keep on this path, So helping youngsters that age not only get on their feet and learn to participate in their community and learn to express themselves and gain self-discipline about, setting up a project and following it to the end. Those are great things, but you also have to recognize what they've done. You have to say, wow, you did a great job, and we're going to recognize you. So we did. We interviewed him. He received a cash prize from renewtheearth.org, which is a not-for-profit, and mailed that yesterday. He for a young person that age, something happening at that point in their life that recognizes, the path they're on as a positive thing and something that the community values, that can set somebody up for a long time. I can remember being that young. And
I have no disagreement with any of that that you're saying. The thing that troubles me is the power of language, and to me, a subtle conscription is the term that's coming to my mind. Well, if all of this is what he's doing, and it sounds really, really wonderful, and may he continue to have the kind of success in his life for sure, why don't we call it the young helpers?
Yeah, I understand. It's the word Marines, but what if this changes what the word Marines, what if it broadens and widens? What if it creates future Marines that are not focused on violent solutions for social problems and discord? What if it changes from the very start what kind of youngsters are evolving into what would be called a military? Maybe it will change the language, is what I'm saying. It may change the whole meaning of what it is to be a Marine. It would take 50 to 100 years, or it may take less time. Things like this can turn over quite quickly, because I didn't hear in anything that this youngster was saying anything that would indicate that he thought of any kind of violent solutions to anything. I couldn't detect that. This was a very evolving sensibility that was a very empathetic and not easily, I don't think, guided, in that respect. Not, he had a mind of his own.
Okay, I didn't talk to him.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I can see how that would be, what you're suggesting. It might, propaganda is propaganda, and we know what Marines are supposed to do. The adult ones, they're supposed to go in with force. But there's other things about Marines, and we've, maybe as the general public, we don't realize some of the things that, they may feel are their most important duties. Maybe force is the last resort, even in that group. I don't know. I know some adult Marines, and they vary greatly in, how they felt about their service, what they're doing now. Some are deeply into community service. This award was given to because in the memory of a colonel, Pete Hillgartner, and he spent his retirement, interacting with his community and trying to do good works in his community. And then of course our friend Bill Holmberg, who helped set up the Young Marines, his vision was that it was going to be for community service, for renewal of the earth, for things that would benefit people, that these youngsters could be brought up in that mindset, and that way would change the whole military from the bottom up. I mean, I know that was his vision for this, and he was one of the founders. He's now in his he's almost 90 years old, so it's gone into the hands of other board of directors, but hopefully this is still the main guiding thing. And it seems to be with this young man, they've cultivated in this young person those gifts.
Okay.
But that's that's a hopeful thing, and I understand your fears too.
Yeah. All right. So, thank you, Susan.
Well, I won't go on and on. It is Veterans Day, and
Oh, okay. Well, we probably disagree on that too. But all right. So my honey goes to the local tavern occasionally, and he had the experience 2 times ago of sitting next to a very, very drunk young man who was just back from Iraq and had he was so drunk he was not really able to communicate, except that my honey understood him. He said it felt like a tragedy sitting next to him because this person was in so much pain and and self-medicating, so drunk. And this young man said, well, while I was there, my commanders kept saying we were doing the right thing, but now I'm back home, and everybody just said, what are you doing? What were you doing there? He said, I'm just so confused. Well, he didn't say that, but he clearly was confused about who he was and what God he was serving. And I did not have a conversation with him. I don't know how old he was. I'm going to guess he was probably in his 20s. And he had served, this word served troubles me too, actually. He had foolishly involved himself, let me say, 3 or 4 times, going back and back to be, and apparently the province of Iraq where he was involved was the Helmand province, which I know nothing about except that it's where Fallujah is and where some of the most vicious fighting apparently took place, maybe still does take place. The thing for me, the thing that touches me is this is no different from the guys coming home from Vietnam, who, I don't know that they were even being told by their commanders in Vietnam, but Vietnam is our war, my war anyway, and the war that really shaped me probably more than any others, because I was in college at the time. And these young men coming home and then being disdained and cast aside by the community they were returning to, not as heroes, but with people asking the question, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? We shouldn't even be there.
Yeah, but they were drafted for the most part. And I don't remember that kind of disdain. I just don't remember people being that. I think that's a huge propaganda campaign there too. Because I don't remember any of my friends or anybody disdaining. We felt
that they were not, there was no victory parade for them. There was the way there was for them.
Well, that's organized by the government. People don't just, spontaneously say, oh, let's have a parade. That's organized by your state or your town. I don't think individually people were disdaining vets.
How many did you know? How many veterans did you talk to?
I knew a lot of vets. I knew a lot of people that I went to school with who were drafted and came back. I knew a lot of them, yes, and they
were welcomed home.
I'm not saying that they had parades for them, because I'm saying that that was a government decision. If they had had,
Were they welcomed home? Because
oh yes.
But I know. Oh, okay. That was not the experience I had here. Where were you physically?
I was in Virginia.
What part of the world?
Virginia.
In Virginia?
Yeah.
Well, in New York State, it was not like that.
Okay. Well, I guess
returning,
different states varied on that. Yeah.
Well, or communities, perhaps.
Yes, and I think it was individual.
But what you told me is that it's not changed, is my point.
Well, I think that there's a lack of understanding, because there's a very, very specific experience that people who join the military and then have to fight and kill people somewhere else in the world, that particular experience is so, they are the only ones that have had that. They come back here and they try to see how that works into how they grew up and what's going on here, and nobody who's not had that experience knows what the heck they're talking about. So there's a lack of any kind of understanding there, unless you're incredibly empathetic and you are taking the time to speak to someone. And oftentimes they come back and they've been damaged mentally by what they've done, because it violates how they grew up, how they were trained as from childhood on, whether they should kill or or be violent. Or
they don't come back damaged. They leave to do the fighting already damaged.
No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
The training is to kill the gooks, kill all those derogatory terms that are.
They are trained, yes, but they don't join. They don't join the military with that attitude. I'm
saying the training they have is to know you have an enemy and
yes.
you're going to kill them.
Right. That is.
Well, then they don't back damage. They leave here damaged to go fight.
Well, they leave here in a mindset that's acceptable to do what they've been trained to do. But once they actually do it, that's where real damage occurs, because they've actually had the experience. They're going through the horrors of war, which are a unique experience. And that's why veterans, this kind of damage has been going on for thousands of years. They just don't call it, what we call it now, post-traumatic stress, or call it with initials. They used to call it different names. Soldiers would come back and they were damaged. They were trained to go do this work, but once they do it, there is real permanent effects that it has on the mind of that person, and whether they can divide.
Stop doing it.
Yes, I agree. It would be excellent if.
Or you're going to get an education. Well, talk about propaganda.
But most of now that it's a volunteer army here, and most kids.
Is it really? You think so?
No, I don't mean it in that way. We don't have an argument here, Bonnie.
I think we do.
No, I don't think we do, because what's happening is economics is forcing youngsters to make this choice. They cannot make a living, in other ways. They can't go to college. They don't have the wherewithal to do that. And maybe, as the propaganda says, get a good job. And that's propaganda too. It depends on what college you go to and how many contacts you're able to make. What kind of, how well that dream world comes out. But one thing that is very much in front of them all the time while they're going through high school is the propaganda. You can join the army and we'll educate you and we'll make you a good person, a man or a woman, or, and you can have a career but the fine print is what they, that for some people, this is their only choice. Otherwise, they'll be absorbed.
And that's propaganda too.
No, it isn't, because there's real poverty in this country. There's real poverty, and that's why these groups, form in communities where there's not many resources. You're either going to become part of a gang and help with the drug trafficking, or you're going to try to get out of the neighborhood. And the only way to get out for some of them is to join the military.
Well, but don't defend this.
I'm not defending it. I'm telling you the reality. It's not a defense. You have to consider the reality, Bonnie.
A military mindset is poverty too.
Of course, there are all kinds.
Poverty to poverty.
Yes. When you want.
Dennis can explain this.
Okay, Dennis, you jump in.
Let Dennis explain what the problem is.
Please.
Imagine if you had a dysfunctional government that needs reform. Okay, just imagine. And let's just say in our country we had free grade school and free high school. Even if your parents are unemployed, right? They can't afford any of this. Those children can go to grade school at no charge and high school until they're the age of 18. And please just think about the age of 18 when you're graduating from high school and it's time to go to college. Not only is college so expensive that you can't afford it, grade school and high school were free, and now college is so expensive, but they also tell you, 18, that's the age. You can go over, doesn't matter if it's the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, go over in the military. We were told if they went over for 4 years, they could come back here and they can afford college. So isn't it interesting? I mean, and Bonnie, you know that the rate of suicide of our troops coming back home is so high, right?
And also domestic violence.
Yes, right. And so what I believe is that, they go over there for those 4 years because they couldn't afford to go to college. And they're told, go in that house. No, it doesn't matter if the men, women, the children, kill whoever's in that house. And then they come back home after 4 years of doing all this stuff. And they're going to church with their family and stuff. And they're thinking, oh my God, love thy neighbor, thou shalt not kill. Oh my God, what did I do? And, the rate of suicide of our troops coming back home, I really think it has a lot to do with
it's a cognitive dissonance. That's the psychological term for it. Cognitive dissonance. Your mind just cannot deal with it.
Isn't it interesting though? In this country, we never have to ask where our troops are coming from. Whether we go into Iraq or Afghanistan, do you ever have to say, oh, we don't have enough troops? I mean, isn't that why? Like, what percentage of our troops are these 18, 19-year-old kids who can't afford to go to college?
Yes, it's an endless supply coming out of the high schools.
Really? That's so
and before, when there was a draft, if the youngster could afford to go to college, you got a pass. And if you could have a child or something or had a family, you got a pass. But, it's not the case anymore with the, quote, all volunteer army. It's not volunteer. It's now, if you can't figure out how to go to college and, it's the economics that forces, it's a kind of an economic draft in a way, in my opinion.
I think so too. But I also think that the military is right there in your high school conscripting you.
That's right.
Or signing you up, shall I say. And every time there's a table, this is my thought, every time there's a table for promoting war or suggesting that being in the military is a noble thing, a heroic thing for our young men and women, I'd like to have a table right next to it, which is promoting poetry, art. We think that these things are outside of our grasp. We're also trained, we're propagandized into thinking that we have to have what has been traditionally, there's an expectation. I don't know why we're talking about college is the only thing to do. There are technical schools you can go to learn how to earn a living. Now, if you don't have the background or the home life to turn you in that direction, but this idea that college is the answer, when it no longer is. People are graduating from college who can't find a job.
Exactly.
I think we got to get off of that rant. We got to get onto a different. I'm not saying it's not economic, and it's not economics that drive people. But the thing I want to talk about today is not so much the economics. I mean, although I can make room for that, Suba. But it's not so much the economics for me. It's what's happening to the soul, to the heart of these beings. What is there? There's nothing in place to this native spirit that is human has been I don't know, pulled out of us or
No,
reshaped.
it's been shoved aside because there's a more powerful force, which is called, surviving in our economic system. And people will do.
Part of surviving is that you have a philosophy of joy.
Oh, yes, exactly.
And that's at McDonald's and hoping you can get $13 an hour if everything.
If that's the only thing available to you, Bonnie, that's what you do.
I'm sorry?
If that's the only thing available to you, that's what you have to do. That's the problem, is that there are people who don't have a lot of choices or have no choices.
Well,
and they are in this country.
People who have choices don't necessarily have choices either.
Well, true, and they think they don't, or those are other reasons, but,
No, or the choices we're given are the same ones that promote the economic system that you and Jeff are trying to turn around or change in some fundamentally important way. This whole idea of you go to college and you'll get a good job is no longer true. What college used to be about, if we're going to keep touting college, was to expand your understanding of life. It wasn't to know how to work a computer. All of that is askew. So even the things that we're saying people can't afford to have are not things that are even necessarily desirable.
Education.
You know what's dysfunctional? And Dennis just mentioned one thing that's dysfunctional here that we should.
Yes, are you like his ventriloquist or something?
Oh, you're right. What makes you say that? Good. This, I believe, is very dysfunctional. College can be less expensive than going to kindergarten because when you're a graduate from high school and you are in college for a major, you can go on the internet and do 95% of your education over the internet. Only the 5% is when you come in and you take your test and your teacher gives you these exams and you take those tests. It would be so inexpensive for these college, or I should say high school graduates, to be able to learn what they are learning in college over the internet. But I'm just saying, if a kid in kindergarten can't do that, okay, kindergarten would be more expensive because those kids can't do that. So the teacher has to stand there in front of these kids and show them what to do. But when you're a high school graduate, it doesn't have to be this expensive. The only reason it's expensive in college to get that degree is because they know that we can get our troops, as many troops as we want, by just raising the price of these college. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, I'm not sure I agree with you, but please continue. Finish your thought.
Well, I just think that that's something that we could reform if it ever gets dysfunctional.
Well, hold on. I want to interject because I've been listening for a little bit, and the problem is the entire system. And what Bonnie's saying is we have choices to a certain degree, but because we're into the economic system, we imagine we have the choices, but we don't. And what I tell people like you, Dennis, and like other friends of mine, I say, when we wake up in the morning, because we're into this economic system, we're going to get another day older and we're going to kill at least 1 or 2 people today. And I know you don't want to kill somebody, but our economic system is forcing us to because of our lifestyle. No matter how good we think we are, or how careful we are, or how many solar panels we put up, it doesn't matter. Our economic system is killing people today. And if we can just realize that all human beings have the same needs. And if we respect the needs of all humanity and fulfill those needs, not their wants, their needs. The wants are different. If we fulfill the needs, education, food and shelter, and it doesn't matter whether it's a high school education or an education on how to plant plants or trees or gardens or helping people who need help, whatever the education is, that's the point of the HRM. And that's that's bringing us into the beginning of this. And Pat Humphrey, we're going to be playing a piece for the halfway intermission. We're going to take a little break, but I want to introduce this, that what we're all talking about is a way of saying we got to help humanity. We don't really need armies to kill people, but I think we should have armies that help people. When you're born, you join an army, and the army is
Well,
there.
you don't call it an army, according to Bonnie. She doesn't like the word.
We maybe not call it. Let's call it. You join into a human corps, and when you get a stamp, and you work an hour a day, no matter where you are in the world, and you get your basic needs met, not your. And by the way, there's a fellow behind me helping me out, and he's working. It's very hot out there.
If you
And-
sit here, people can see him go by.
And,
That's why I was
well, you can see him go by every so often on the program. He's clearing out a tree that had fallen over the course of the summer, or the course of the winter.
summer,
And this guy's working his butt off, and but he loves to work in the garden. This is his field. He loves to work. I mean, it's amazing to watch this guy. He stops and takes a little break, and then he goes out, and he doesn't stop. He loves working, and and he gets satisfaction out of it. But anyway, go ahead.
Is he the guy who gave you the share of stock in ExxonMobil?
No, that was my attorney who gave me that share. And at first,
That's the only reason why Jeff kills people.
no, it's not the only reason, Dennis. The minute you go to the all-you-can-eat buffet, you're killing somebody. You know that? The minute you get into a car, the minute you get into the Golden Corral, you're killing someone. The minute you stop at a traffic light, and you got 100 horses and all that energy being burned up, waiting for the light to change, we are killing somebody. It's every second, every minute of the day in this world. The only way you can possibly get out of this life without killing somebody is if you're in an indigenous country and you were part of the persecution of it, that you are being into slavery. But otherwise, if we're in this Western world and we're living really well, Bonnie, she's doing what she's doing, helping the system. You're doing what you're doing, and we're doing what we're doing. We're trying to do the best we can, but we're still not. We can't get out of the economic system. So anyway, if we go the break we're going to be taking, I want to tell you first of all, this is brought to you by the Human Renewable Energy Measure, HRM.org. This is called Wednesday World Call In. We have Bonfire with us, and she normally does a program called Landslides. And this is Bridges programming, and we invite people to do programming on it as long as it's a humanitarian thinking process. And if you want to contribute, great. If not, that's perfectly all right. We also have a nonprofit group called Renew the Earth, which we give out cash prizes on because we have granting for that, or people donate money for different programs we're doing, and we give out cash awards because we don't want to keep money. No one on this program gets paid. Nobody does. But anyway, this is called Bridges Programming, and this is a Landslide production actually by Bonfire. And Dennis Carius is here, Susan's here, I'm here, and I'm in the process of physically working around the place, so I in and out. But we're going to take a little break, and remember, Human Renewable Energy Measure, HRM.org. We'll be back in about 3 minutes, and what we have going to be playing for us is Pat Humphreys, and we're going to take about a 4-minute break. And this is called Hands, and I think you'll enjoy that.
Are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power, some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. I am alone, I am searching, hungering for answers in my time. I am balanced at the brink of wisdom. I'm impatient to receive a sign. I move forward with my senses open. Imperfection in me, my crime. In humility, I will listen. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living beneath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together. Some in power, some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. On this journey through thoughts and feelings, finding intuition, my head, my heart, I am gathering the tools together. I'm preparing to do my part. All of those who have come before me, band together and be my guide. Loving lessons that I will follow. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living beneath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together. Some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. When we get there, we'll discover all of the gifts we've been given to share have been with us since life's beginning, and we never noticed they were there. We can balance at the brink of wisdom, never recognizing that we've arrived. Loving spirits will live together. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living beneath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together. Some in power, some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side.
Well, thank you, Pat Humphreys. That was a good piece of work. We're back. This is, again, Bridges Programming. This is Wednesday World Call In. This is Bonfire's program, and that's Bonnie Hogue. And we have Dennis Carius, and we have Susan Comont, and myself, Jeff Bello. I want to thank you all for listening. We're on a second half. And Dennis, are you happen to be on air? Are you online yet to see where we are or not?
Well, I'm online on YouTube, but right now I have not found the show that we're on right now.
Okay, look at live. Go YouTube Bridges Programming Live. It should pop on. YouTube Bridges Programming Live, and you will see You'll see Bonfire, and you'll notice that she's told. What's that?
No, you won't.
Well, he'll see the words.
Oh, okay.
And anyway, and then when you get online, I'll be able to see when you're online. I can see who's looking, where they're looking from. So this is interesting. Okay, I'm going to let you continue on because if the problem is that where the HRM works, people ask me, well, where does this work the best? How do we institute it? Well,
Social Security is
Social Security is one, but the reality is that it works the best because of the military, or the military. In the military, you join up and you work a little bit every day, and you get your basic needs met. And if you work harder, you become a corporal and a sergeant and maybe a lieutenant and captain. And each time you work harder, depending upon your wants, you'll have rewards like a bigger house, or eating in the office's mess club instead of the mess hall. And that's up to you. You can choose to do that if you want to, or you can choose to opt out of the program totally. The reality is that there's no, that's the HRAM. But we should be doing that without having to kill people. We should just work about an hour a day because of all the things we have.
We're helping people to get their needs met.
Yeah, the needs are being met, and that should be throughout the world. And that's where we are at. But people say, well, how do we pay for that? And well, people are working, and if they're working for it, they're producing their own quality of life. And the more people work, and people enjoy working. Most people can't sit and do nothing unless they're terribly old, like I'm getting, and we're all getting, or they're terribly young and they can't function. But most people want to do stuff, and human beings are meant to do stuff. But with the difference between us and an animal, I think, is we have a thought process. We have different wants.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead.
That makes us different.
Our thought process.
Listen, I want to take a moment to apologize to Susan. I was far too fierce and forceful.
Oh, that's okay. I don't mind. Jeff is a lot more furious and forceful a lot of the time than you've not seen anything.
And you live with him.
Right.
By the way, if you could, I'm hoping Dennis can go online now, if he would. Would you possibly do that, Dennis?
Well, the good news, Jeff, is I am going online right now. The bad news is I have not found it yet.
Did you type in Bridges Programming?
Live, I did that, yes.
And you type YouTube Bridges Programming Live.
Right.
Well,
Yes, I did that.
try, and then if you look on the top of it, you should see today's programming.
For example, it says Bridges Programming active 1 day ago.
No, go above that. It should say now.
Yeah. And that's what I clicked on, and it's right now it's waiting.
Did you refresh?
Okay, well, while we're doing that, is it important, Jeff, that you have that sorted out before I continue?
No, continue
Before
on.
you do that, can I just mention, it says Bonfire is November 11th. Landslide program will honor all veterans of peace as well as of war by returning to the issue of biological and chemical warfare. Okay, I do have it now.
Okay, click on that and you should be live.
Good. And it says live now. Good. Okay.
The action that I'm trying to take in the world is to have my fellow human beings ever more aware, as I become more aware of the various materials and concepts that are at play, which we mostly don't know about, and if we do know about them, we don't really think about them very much, and maybe because they're painful. This to me is the way of making a change. And this is also why the book Tomorrow's Weapons by Rothschild is such a treasure to me. I mean, in a most kind of perversely a treasure. But here is, before he goes into his chapter about, which is titled The Historical Picture of Chemical and Biological Warfare, and it does go way back in time, not surprisingly, he talks about a general who lists 3 factors as measures, I'm reading right now, measures of the comparative humaneness of forms of warfare. Comparative humaneness of forms of warfare. And while I know that Susan and Jeff so much want to get this concept of how we could, the economic system we could have in place if we well, really just chose to actually and overcame our sleepiness and a lot of other things, I suppose. But when you think that there is a mentality that actually is considering comparative humaneness of forms of warfare, there should be no consideration because there is no humaneness in warfare. That's me talking, of course. So here's what it says. The degree of suffering at the time of the injury, the number of permanent after effects, and the percentage of deaths to the total number injured. That's how you compare the humaneness of various forms of warfare. The degree of suffering at the time of injury, the number of permanent after effects, and the percentage of deaths to the total number injured. And to continue with the writing in the book, in none of these can toxic weapons be said to be more inhumane than any other weapons of war. And as subsequent chapters will show in this book, an excellent case can be made for toxics as the most humane weapons of all. I hope that if anyone's listening, besides Dennis and maybe Jeff and Susan, that you would concur that there's no sanity in any of that. To be comparing relative injury and one being more humane than another. None of it's humane. But for some reason, I think what we do globally, if we're paying attention at all, is we go along with that way of thinking. So the way of thinking about who we are and what we're doing on this planet, this amazing planet, and this mystery of being alive, which should be a source of celebration, should be a source of not comparing inhumaneness, but comparative humaneness, if anything, like this young man Susan was talking about. How do we become more humane? How do we be more humane? And then we could do comparative humaneness instead of inhumaneness. In any case, the book, for me, is an extremely valuable reference because it's written by people who actually think there can be comparative inhumaneness, and this comparison can lead to using chemical and biological warfare instead of radioactive warfare, nuclear warfare. There's no instead there, people. Stop.
Isn't that like our political system, though? We can use this person who's terrible or this person who may be a little less terrible. It's the same thinking process.
Yes, and indeed, it's the thinking. We can't seem to pry loose the broader, the basis for comparative candidates.
Hold on. I want to interrupt you one time there again, because the reason why we can't pry loose from it is compare is because we have no starting point. And that's where the HRM comes in. It says our starting point for our comparison has to be that all human beings must have their basic needs met for 1 hour of their time a day. That's what the start point is. You can't get to where you want to go or where we'd like to go without a starting point. You have to know you are here, that we all agree upon. This is where we are, and this is where we want to go. So what I'm suggesting is the HRM, and that's the whole point of these programs, is you're right. We're so caught up in this insanity because we don't know where we are, and we need to agree that we
haven't agreed on our commonality.
We have to agree on our commonality that all human beings must have their basic needs met for 1 hour of work a day, so they're not into slavery.
And that's where you want to go. You want to have those basic needs met.
And once you've agreed to that, you can then get out of this insanity that we're caught up in, and we can stop killing people. Does that make sense to you too, Dennis, or not?
Oh, yes. No, to Dennis, see Jeff on the screen, but I don't see Susan though.
Well,
I'm getting myself together because we've been really rushing this
we've been
morning.
rushing, we've been on the road, but now the most important thing is I'm giving you a beautiful visual of beautiful trees here and flowers, and it's just a beautiful visual, and it's nice to see nature's beauty sort of not too much messed up with, because we did have to cut the grass because we have beautiful snakes here, and some of them are a little poisonous. So we have to keep the grass cut a little bit around the property because we do have poisonous snakes here. That is much more.
Okay, so maybe we'll return now to something we haven't done in a long time, which is, well, I haven't, maybe others have, conscious breathing, which is something I used to do almost every week when I was on radio local to Troy, New York. But I'm not there anymore. Here I am on the Bridges programming, thanks to Jeff and Susan. And
Dennis
bringing my voice in.
And
So,
also thanks to our technology. But while you're doing the breathing exercises, I'm going to step away from the camera and have people look at nature, beautiful nature, and watch and try to enjoy the breathing exercises. And looking at the breeze blowing, you can see the breeze blowing against the trees. So it sort of is going to be a calming effect with your breathing exercises. And then we'll be back.
Very often we ask people to close their eyes.
And if you open your eyes, watching on the screen, wow. I mean, we had summer. I understand now they call this fall, but I don't see one leaf falling from those trees. Wow, you must be in Florida, Jeff.
I believe he is.
Oh.
And I also believe that this is an awful lot of technology for people to have an experience of nature. So, although I'm participating, I don't approve of fun. So, here we go. For people who just quiet themselves if they're feeling riled up, which apparently I am, and place your feet flat on the floor. Be aware of your body in the chair if you are sitting in a chair. If you can lie down on the floor, so much the better. We're going to spend a few minutes with our breath and with this activity, which I have over the years come to call conscious breathing. And it is a gift to all of us, I hope, who are wrangling with some pretty big ideas about life on the planet and how we could all be living so much more happily and so much with such better nourishment. Breath alone, better nourishment. So with our feet flat on the floor and our hips, aware of our hips in the chair, imagine, if you will, that you can lengthen your spine and lift out of your hips. Roll your shoulders back and down. Imagine that your scapulas, those wings on our backs, those vestigial wings on our backs, can wiggle a little bit because our shoulders are rolling back and down. And away from our ears, allow your neck to lengthen. The bones in the vertebrae of your neck, allow there to be space between the bones in your neck and in your upper back, your spine, all the way to the very bottom tip of our spine, the coccyx as it's called, that little bone at the end of the spine, and being aware that even as we draw up out of our hips and lengthen our spine and lift our heads towards the ceiling or the sky, wherever we might be, that we are grounding at the same time. And we are preparing to bring into our body breath with consciousness, with awareness. Of course, we're breathing anyway, because if we're not breathing, that useful involuntary action, involuntary action just happens. No, that's voluntary. Oh dear, I can't, it's escaping me. But it happens on its own. So drawing our breath in, now with awareness, and then releasing it. Finding your own pace of breath. in through your nose if it's possible and comfortable, allowing your breath to settle into your lungs and follow it into your lungs with your awareness, and then breathing out through your open mouth, allowing your jaw to relax. Maybe even, wiggle your jaw a little bit, place where we tend to keep the things that we didn't say that we wanted to say, or to keep the things that we said in anger, just the vestiges. So we're letting go of anger and restraint in our jaw, letting it relax. Breathing through an open mouth, inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your open mouth. Finding your own pace. Very important that we breathe at our own pace. Being aware that each time we bring in a breath, we're bringing in this magical thing called air, which we share with all beings who ever were and who ever will be. So going far, far back to breathing, sharing the breath with dinosaurs and crazy people and saviors and people just next door to us and people into the future, beings into the future, all animals, trees, all the breathers on this planet. The amount of air we have on our planet is the amount that will always be. So we can imagine we're drawing in breath that is cleansing and nourishing, medicinal, and we bring it deeper and deeper into our bodies and allowing it to circulate and to breathe out from our bodies all of those things that no longer serve us and are ready to be released. So we're letting go of things that are ready to be released. Drawing your breath in again. Deeply into your lungs, allowing your awareness to come into your lungs and look around, see how your lungs are doing today. Hopefully they are healthy and able to breathe in to full capacity. But if not, we're bringing nourishment and we're just nudging very, very gently as though your breath is saying hello to your lungs and to the capacity of your lungs, and then breathing out all of those things that no longer serve us and are ready to be released. So no yanking, no dragging, no pulling. Very, very gentle. Be aware again of your body, if you will, for a moment, and your hips, your spine. Remember to keep your spine long, right up to the crown of your head. Imagining as you inhale this time that you are drawing air not only in through your nose into your body, but through the crown, the very top of your head. And bringing that breath in, allowing it to circulate in your lungs and in your heart, and carry out from your heart whatever sadness is ready to be released. So we're bringing in nourishment, and if you so choose, you're breathing in joy, delight, just surround us energetically. We're bringing them into our bodies. Joy and delight to perhaps fill those places where we're breathing out the sadness or the decay that is ready to be released. We can harbor sadness and bring our breath to it as though to comfort our sadness. We don't have to breathe out all of the things that we might in a moment wish we could remove from our being. Some of them maybe they're still to teach us or to move us through something that is going on in our lives. Maybe it's appropriate that we should be sad because something really sad is upon us. But there may be sadness we're harboring from a long time ago that is ready to be breathed out. So So returning again to an awareness of your own breath. Excuse me. Breathing in to your heart and your lungs. At this time, even more deeply, bringing your breath into your stomach. That is your solar plexus area, just below your rib cage. And breathing out from this place all those butterflies that may be giving you twinges rather than really a vital, joyful excitement. If they're ready to be breathed out, the fear of those twittering in the belly, the stomach, the solar plexus. So we're emptying ourselves of all of those things that are injuries, past or present, and are ready to be breathed out. Nourishment in, again, at your own pace. And allow your awareness now to travel all the way to your belly. That is below your navel, the dantian, the hara of martial arts. Conscious breathing as a Venusian, of Venus, a love and compassion activity, not martial. And bringing our breath into our bellies, allow the breath to collect whatever is there that is ready to be breathed out through your mouth. You might even want to make a sound of release. If you notice that your body is slumping a little bit maybe, or your feet are no longer flat on the floor, I ask that you return to position so that you are comfortably, but also attentively long and open. Imagine your shoulders again back so your heart opens, your lungs can breathe in more air, and again at your own pace, bringing your breath all the way to your belly. This place of one point in martial arts, this place of residence of the true you, the true me, the ones we are, the ones we dream of being, the ones we have a capacity to be. And let our breath nourish that place. And then breathing out, of course, at your own pace. And again, breathing out if you feel called to, carry it out with a sound. Reminding me of that yoga exercise of the lion breathing out and getting rid of all the bad air, the energy that no longer is serving our being. Be aware as you breathe in and out at your own pace. Please be aware of the energy field that surrounds you, and that it doesn't need to have a cultivated edge of barbed wire and bayonets going back long ago, the technology of longer ago, or just imagine that you can breathe not only into your body, but into that energy field, that auric field that surrounds you, that also has your vibe and your energy in it, your impulse, your exhalation spiritually and energetically. And to carry out from your energy field as well as from your body by way of breath, all of those things no longer serve you and are ready to be released, to let go. And notice then at the edge of your auric field, imagine out even 12 inches from the edge of your skin, just notice that you can have some sweet breath there, and we don't need to have a defense system. We don't need to have a technology of war at the very edge of ourselves. And maybe releasing that from ourselves is one of those steps that we can make as humanity away from thinking of how will I defend myself, how will I make more money, how will I, and just let all of those how will I be released out from our bodies. ability to trust one another. Breathe into the place in your body where you do still harbor trust for humanity, for other humans, for the ones around you, for the ones even whom you fear. They may just live next door, or they may live in another country. They may be on another planet if you think astrally, really broadly into the cosmos. But wherever we have formed the concept of an enemy or someone who might do us harm, bring your breath around to that place in your body and release it with your exhalation. Me too. Me too. Letting go. Letting go. Letting go. Take a look at your crown and see if it seems to be open, as if perhaps the energy that you see there is white or light, vibrant, energetic. Take a moment as you continue with your breathing to look at your third eye, that point between your, on your brow, between your eyebrows, just above your eyebrows. If you even want to touch it, that place, find it with your finger and just apply very gentle pressure. Third eye, allow your third eye to be breathed into and out of, to allow it to expand, expand, expand. Seeing the world with gentle humor. And then to your throat. Everything we say today with a breath of nourishment. Maybe we can say only things to other people that are supportive and loving, even if we disagree with them. And then bringing our breath to the next chakra of the Hindu approach to the body, the heart. Bring your breath to your heart. Imagine healthy, vibrant, green energy in your heart, breathing out all of those things there that no longer serve you and are ready to be breathed out. Breath now to your solar plexus, finding the bright yellow energy of the sun and the solar sun in this place allows vibrancy to expand. And with your next breath, all the way to your belly, orange of energy and a place of personal power in the world, breathing to that place and energizing that orange color and breath and brightness, vibrancy of who you are in your gentlest, most creative and funniest, I like to put that in there too, funniest way, and then breathing out all the passion that does not serve you. So that next breath is a place of personal power. You pick that up, breathe that out on an exhalation of gentle, good humor. And then to your root chakra, to some say just below the opening to the vagina or the sexual organs, and allow your breath to go to that place to root you into the earth. Imagining the rooting into the earth. Some would say our mother, so that we are rooted into the earth. And then as you continue with your own breath at your own pace, imagine at the other end of your being, the crown chakra, the top of your head, there is a fountain of energy that is traveling out in all directions, gentle, 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 transparent, vapor of joy and delight. And let it travel all around the planet. Imagine it as though our breath of generosity and gentle good humor could travel everywhere and into the auric field, the energy field of our very beautiful, exquisite planet. And so we can, with our breath, knowledge is our spaceship, as some would say. And coming back into your body, if you would make sure you are fully back if you've been traveling. And to be sure that you are fully engaged in your body, maybe more so than before we began this conscious breathing exercise. Be aware of your hips, your knees, your feet on the floor. Maybe wiggle your toes a little bit. So we're bringing that sentience back in. Oh, look, I'm a sentient being. Oh, yeah, I feel a little bit better for that. Wiggle your hips. Maybe bend your shoulders forward and back. Notice that you are completely sublimely in the moment in your spine. Lift your spine. Lift your head. And look into your mind for a moment and see if you can find the places where all of those emanations that are genius, brilliant, emanate from. Let your energy for the rest of the day, if it feels right to you, emanate from that place of genius and beauty. I used to say that conscious breathing is a revolutionary act, and I am reminded of that myself, doing it today, hopefully for others, but perhaps not perfectly for myself. And I would say that it would have been nice to do that in the beginning of these 2 hours. I would have perhaps been much more calm with my dear friend Susan.
Oh, don't worry about that. I'm tough.
Yeah, well, you don't have to be tough with your friend Bonnie.
Well, no, not with my friend Bonnie at all. I'm not. But that, while you were doing the that meditation, or I mean, that's just a general term, but I was noticing that several wonderful butterflies went by the window here, so that was cool.
Very cool. What kind of butterflies do you have?
Well, we have the swallowtails, and then the huge yellow one that I used to know the name of. I have to refresh my memory. And then there's a really interesting one that's got these kind of teardrop wings, shaped wings that are all stripy like a zebra. So beautiful.
Wow.
But I think it comes from South America somewhere. They come up here in the winter and hang out for a while, just like we do, I guess.
Yeah. And do you think that maybe as the energy changed around you in the meditation, that it was more of an invitation?
Well, it could have been. It's very much.
I only know that for myself it makes a difference.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know I feel calmer.
Earlier in this show, Dennis was saying the same thing when I talked to my cat. We don't talk in English, but that's what was happening just now.
Oh, was it?
We were talking to each other. You know, I actually had a thought while you were, I mean, often when I calm down, thoughts will more easily drift into my conscious mind. And I would like to just say, to summarize the thought, was that we're all in the kind of socioeconomic pact that the developed countries have, because we're born into it and we're coerced to participate in it at some level, that we're all suffering from cognitive dissonance and a kind of post-traumatic stress type syndrome, because we're all trying to balance how we have to live our lives with the amount of damage that we're doing. So, that's coming back from, I mean, we all have this potential for violence in our makeup as humans, but it's there for, survival purposes, not for, the purposes of our economic system. We don't usually engage in that kind of desperation, unless, our survival or survival of people that we love is threatened. And, but in economics, it's like hidden from us because, we don't really realize the impact of our lifestyles every moment But when you go to war and you are killing for the economic system, you have a dramatic realization there. And but they are not alone. We are all suffering from this. We are all at different levels suffering from this kind of PTSD or whatever they want to call it. It's
One reason I think I feel such urgency in correcting it is because I want to correct my own suffering.
Yeah, we all suffer. At certain levels, we all suffer.
I'm sorry?
I said we're all suffering from this. You know,
I thought that
yeah.
someone said that. Dennis, did you say something beyond Susan?
Oh,
No.
yes. Well, Dennis was just going to say that he agrees with what Susan was just saying, but I think I just lost the topic. So I'll let you go ahead, Bonnie.
Well, I happen to have kept in my possession, going back to the days of our previous radio incarnation in another location, all of us. It's called All Consuming Passion, and I actually took a few of them. Someone must have passed it on to me because they thought it would have been appropriate to my radio program in those days. All Consuming Passion. It's a nice segue from what Susan was just saying. Waking up from the American dream. It's created by the New Roadmap Foundation, and I don't know what they're doing in the year 2015, but this is from 1993. So you have to imagine that the statistics that they have no longer apply. I think I should actually contact them. They're in Seattle, Washington, and see if they have something more current. But even so, the percentages is all done in comparative, speaking of comparisons between and among various ways to kill one another and injure one another. This would be a comparison of ways that we are experiencing our lives. And on page, it's a very small pamphlet, and I really do want to credit them for putting it together. I don't know how reliable the statistics were even in 1993, but they sound right to me from my own experience of living in this culture. It says more. Is it really better? And it's, so people today, and this was 1993, so you get to extrapolate to 2015. People today are, on average, 4.5 times richer, we could debate what that means, than their great-grandparents at the turn of the century. That would be 1900, since have suffered another turn of the century. But and so they show a person standing next to a chair and a table and a clock and a lamp and a little candelabrum. And then today, it's a person standing next to that same conglomeration of stuff, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the same conglomeration, so more stuff. The percentage of college freshmen who reported thinking it is essential to be well off financially in 1967, the percentage was 44%. In the year 1987, it was 76%. 76% of college freshmen reported thinking it was essential to be well off financially. So that's not a complete doubling, but I would guess by now it's probably, over 100%. I know that's not possible, but, and the next one, percentage of college freshmen who reported thinking it is essential to develop a philosophy of life, which clearly Susan, Jeff, Dennis, and Bonnie all have attempted to do and to change as it's an ebbing and flowing kind of an event for me anyway. My philosophy of life is ever shifting. But that percentage of college freshmen who reported thinking it is essential to develop a philosophy of life in 1967 was 83%. What were they thinking? 1987, 39%. And they actually do give the statistics. They do have footnotes, which I'm not going to go to at the moment. The number of Americans with 2 or more homes would be in 1993, or therefore, for those statistics, was 10 million Americans had 2 or more homes. The number of homeless Americans, and this is again a statistic from the 1990s, is a minimum of 300,000, and we know that that has escalated. And there are people who live in homes who, in some ways, are homeless. If they don't have a happy home life, if you come home and there's drinking or there's violence, in a way, you could say you are homeless, because a home is a place where, in my sense of the world, it's a place where you go where you're going to be comfortable and loved and sharing food and ideas and warmth. And if none of those things, or some of those things, are not in place, which is very often the case in our extremely dysfunctional society, and I think that's probably a global dysfunction wherever perhaps capitalism is really thriving. I use that word facetiously. So we have more homeless, not just people.
I think I would add the word safety to that.
And safety.
Right.
Yes, thank you. Average time spent shopping per week in the 1990s. This is under the title of Shopping Fever. Okay. Average time spent shopping per week in 1993, 6 hours. Time spent playing with children per week, 40 minutes. Number of advertisements American teenagers are typically exposed to by the time they graduate from high school, 360,000. I'm sure that it's escalated profoundly beyond that, because you can't have a cell phone. Well, maybe you can, but it's hard to have a cell phone that is not related to advertising. I mean, cell phones themselves are creatures of advertising. The necessity of having one. But I will not continue. I will not go farther there today. The amount of time the average American will spend watching TV commercials, and of course now that's escalated as well, since TV is just one of the boxes we like to spend time with. One entire year of his or her life. Wow, I don't have a TV anymore, and as my friends know, I go to the library to do email. I'm not saying I'm not part of this. I am just at this very moment part of it, because you are hearing my voice due to extreme technology craziness. Let's see here. About 53% of grocery and 47% of hardware store purchases are spur of the moment. Again, there is a footnote with that, which I'm not going to track today. Americans can choose from over 25,000 supermarket items, 200 kinds of cereal, 11,092 magazines. But again, all of that has escalated and profoundly, probably quadrupled in the year 2015. And then further on in this amazing little pamphlet, I should tell people, again, this is created by the New Roadmap Foundation. And the copyright of the pamphlet that I'm holding is 1993. Anybody wants to find out more about them, they probably have a website by now, if they do still exist. The New Roadmap Foundation. But in this pamphlet, they give only their address, which is P.O. Box 15981, Seattle, Washington. Zip code 9 by now, if they do still exist. The New Roadmap Foundation. But in this pamphlet, they give only their address, which is P.O. Box 15981, Seattle, Washington. Zip code 98115. And in the time we have left, a few more minutes, Is our dream a nightmare for others? And this is certainly reflecting what Susan was talking about and Jeff was talking about, the kind of injury we cause by proxy just because of the lifestyle we have. Doesn't mean that we're healthy, by the way. We still make choices that are not included in that. Sugar is one of my problems. Bad sugar. But here it says, percentage of the world's population, which is American, of which we are, what percentage are we of the world population? 5%. And then the percentage of world's resources consumed by Americans, 30%. And I remember from years ago when I was involved in trying to not have a mass burn incinerator in my county, which we got anyway, that we had another statistic of that the U.S. produces 25% of the garbage, again, 5% of the world population, 25% of the garbage, profoundly acute. The average energy the amount of energy used by one American is equivalent to that used by, the amount of energy used by one American is equivalent to that used by 3 Japanese, 6 Mexicans, 14 Chinese, 38 Indians, I assume of India, 168 Bangladeshi, 531 Ethiopians. And when I give you that statistic, we have to imagine that too is now far beyond that, because we have not diminished our use of energy, we have increased it. Certainly this idea of computers saving in natural resources is just a lie, and is one that many people fall for. How much energy does one American use compared to the others? And it shows you the same thing by way of a graph. Susan, do we have time for any more, or is it time to say goodbye?
Well, it looks like there's another, just a little less than 10 minutes. Here's
okay.
Jeff. Jeff will probably bring us into the close, but could I just make one comment? When you were talking, Bonnie, it made me think of John F. Kennedy's statement when the Berlin Wall, when he went to speak in Berlin and he said, "Ich bin ein Berliner," I am a Berliner. I think because we are all in some way on the front lines of this, if we're living in developed countries, and as you said, Americans using 30% of resources, and we're only 5% of the population of the world. We are all vets. We are all vets in this respect, veterans, and we can have solidarity with the veterans of this country, because that is what we all are on different, either through the way that we're practicing our economics at the most consumptive point, a population that's only 5% of the world using 30% of the resources is obscene. We can say that we are all suffering from being veterans of this, and at every level. Just to put that in perspective. Okay, Jeff wants to.
It's also a lovely way to end the program, since initially I was talking and thinking about how I too am a veteran, and there aren't any parades. They're not doing anything for me, damn it. But we are veterans by way of our participation, and also by way of our suffering by way of that participation.
Exactly.
Thank you for that. And in closing, I thank Susan and Jeff and Dennis and the HRIM, the Human Renewable Energy Measure. I thank renewableearth.org and also Bridges Programming for giving me time to rant and sigh.
Well, I want to interject another thing that if we keep, we're lowering our flags to half-mast for certain individuals, but the trouble is, if we keep on, if all the individuals who should be lowered, we should be cutting the flagpoles in half. You know, there's no point. I mean, you know, I mean,
You mean permanently
permanently half-mast. I mean, that, I mean, until we fix the economic system, and then once we, and then all flags should be raised, and the top of the flags should be the world flag, and then the country flags go below it, and the state flags below that. But anyway, that's my personal feeling. Everybody's entitled to their own stupid opinions, and that was mine.
Thank you for concluding with something funny, though. I mean, it's also true, but funny.
Well, the thing is, it's sort of ironic, and if you don't laugh about this stuff, you're going to be crying most of the time. That's my opinion. Or suicidal, and I think that we have an opportunity as a species to change things.
To think things through.
And that means I'm pessimistic.
No, optimistic.
I mean optimistic, rather.
You're having cognitive dissonance right now.
I'm also dyslexic, so everything is backwards.
Oh, gosh.
Well, Dennis, you want to conclude? Dennis,
actually,
we have.
I was going to see if Dennis wanted to sing us a tune to go out this time.
What?
No? Am I putting you on the spot? And Dennis is laughing. You can't sing.
Well, we have about. Dennis, do you have any conclusions you want to bring up to about when I'm 64, but you're beyond 64 now, are you not?
When I'm 64.
Yes, beyond 64.
Will you still love me? Will you still
need
me when I'm beyond 64 is the question.
Yeah, we got to change that verse.
The other thing is I'd like to bring out that there's a song by Gordon Bach, and one of the words says, he sails a big sailing ship. And when he sails the sailing ship, not many people can still do that, you know, with the big, all these big masts and
right, that's
sails.
A skill that's disappeared.
And it's
right.
so one of the younger people say to him, can you teach me what you know before you go?
And actually, that's a very interesting point, because technology is moving so fast now that people who are older and can't keep up with the technology, but they have knowledge that should be imparted to the younger generation. It's not happening. That exchange is coming less and less. And that's why this kind of broadcast really is so rare, because Jeff and I really, we're on the very edge of what we can do with technology here. And I don't know if it changes again, dramatically, which it's doing every year. I can go, you know what I'm saying here, Bonnie. The technology is actually taking the generational exchange away from society.
And further away from the ideas that we were hoping to impart.
Well, the reality is that Dennis is a computer programming guy, and it's beyond Dennis, and I'm trying to keep up with this the best I can with the help of a lot of young people. We're going to go out because this is renewable energy, and human beings are renewable energy.
And we got to go renew our energy.
And we got to go renew our energy. So that's the way it goes.
Thank you so much, Bonnie, Dennis.
Thank you, everybody.
You guys are wonderful.
Bye. Thanks, Bonnie.
Breaks elsewhere across the sea, and suddenly the price of oil goes up. Your neighbor's out of work because they closed the factory. You try to stretch your paycheck, but it's never quite enough for energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy. Fossil fuel affects our lives like ripples on a lake. Cars and farms and factories and trucks. Supplies go down and prices soar, our futures are at stake. And when it's gone, it won't come back, and we'll be out of luck. Oh, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.
We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees. Even trash converts to biofuels. Break loose from the stranglehold of oil companies. Renewables can fuel the world. We're here to spread the news of energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone? Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes